I guess we can start. All right, so let's just introduce ourselves. We can start. Where do you want to start? Let's start with Andrew.
Hey, so I'm Andrew Sun. I'm in the Science Academy at the Bergen County Academies, and I'm a senior. My interests outside of school include math and Boy Scouting.
Okay, I'm Eddie. I am also in the Science Academy in BCA, and I'm also a senior. I think most of us are seniors. Actually, that's probably not true. That's not true. That's not true. Okay. Yeah. So I guess I'm interested in kind of CS and comp bio and computational bio, and and I do some model UN and stuff, but not as much anymore. But some robotics too.
I'm Jason. I'm a junior in engineering at BCA, and I'm interested in, computational biology and model UN.
I'm Colin. I go to BT. I'm a junior. I'm in the business major, and I think I'm interested in econ and finance to study that in college.
Hi, I'm Alicia. I'm also a junior in the law and justice major at Bergen Tech, and I think I'm interested in pursuing business.
I'm Victoria. I go to BCA, and I'm a senior in the Academy for Visual Arts, and I'm interested in computer graphics, and I also play tennis at school.
Hi, I'm Grace Gu, and I go to RHS, and I'm a senior, and even though I don't really have a decided major yet, I am really interested in learning languages, and I do synchronized swimming outside of school, and I also play the piano.
I'm Michelle. I'm a senior at Ridgewood High School, and I'm interested in studying psychology.
Okay. Yeah, so we have a good assortment of people from BCA, BT, and RHS. So I guess the point of today is to try to give you a better idea of the general kind of maybe the differences, or not differences, but kind of how the experiences differ in between, these three different types of schools, and to try to give you a better picture or a better understanding when you're trying to decide or when you're trying to make your priorities for applications and everything, and just to give you a better idea in general. So we're going to get started with just a very, very brief introduction of each school and just very, very small, simple facts about it. And then we're going to just move into some questions that we have prepared. And at the end, if you want, if you have your own questions, we can have you all ask them, and we can try to answer them as best we can. I think some of the questions that we're going to be asking today are going to be more specifically for some type of people, so not everyone is going to answer every question. Like there's questions about music, or there's some questions about some specific extracurriculars that not everyone does. So if you do have your own very specific questions, we'll be happy to answer them too, as long as they're not too specific, obviously. So, all right, so I guess we should get started with school introduction. So, sure, I guess I'll do most of it. So for BCA, I think BCA tends to be we'll get started with BCA and we'll move to BT and then move to RHS. And BCA is, most of you know, we have 7 academies, and so we have our Science Academy. We have Comp Sci, we have medical, business, visual, culinary, and engineering. So there's 7 academies, and we have about, across all 7 academies, we have around 250 people, or 250 students per grade. I think our grade is a little bit over, but yeah, about 300-ish. Wikipedia is old. So, so out of 300 students in our grade, there are maybe around 2,000 applicants. So I'm really not sure exactly what the numbers are, but that's just a ballpark estimate. And then in terms of BT, I'm sure someone else can tell me the BT Academy is better, or BT program is better than I can. I think there's 9.
Yeah, so there's 9 majors. There's business, law, culinology, digital media, commercial art, automotive, aerospace, fashion, and I forget the last one. But there's 9. Comp sci, computer science. So many of them overlap with BCA, but we have more technical programs. Like for example, we have law and justice, which BCA doesn't have, and we have digital media, which BCA doesn't have. And I think generally the people who apply to BCA also apply to BT because we're sister schools, so the application is on the same page. However, in our grade, I think every single grade has around 180 to 200 people in total.
So 183, I think.
Yeah. I think our grade is 183 or so. Yes.
Yeah, so it tends to be, I think BT tends to be a little bit smaller than BCA, but when you do apply in terms of application, it's the same application page, but I believe you do have to write a separate essay for BT, although it's very similar. And then when you get into the testing and your interview, so BCA and the BT test is, I think, you just take one test, and then when you're going, only BCA has an interview, so BT will, you don't need to be interviewed for BT. So I think mainly the main difference is just, program, and then when you apply, you write a different essay and everything.
We don't have quotas for each town either.
Right, I mean, that's unconfirmed for us either.
It seems very vague. I wasn't able to, I've been told very different things by people who should know what they are talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's very unclear, but I wouldn't worry. I mean, I wouldn't try to game the system if you're looking at applying, and if you're trying to apply to a certain academy, you should definitely look at your interests before trying to look at how likely it is to get in a certain academy. And also, don't move to another town because you think it's easier to get in. But I guess in terms of some interesting stuff that our schools or BCA and BT does is we have, like on Wednesdays for seniors especially, you have an internship program, so that's fun. And then we have, for other kids, it's also, Wednesdays are also a little bit of an off day where we have projects, which is a 2-hour class. And then there's a bunch of other just random opportunities that are kind of spread out. I think we're going to get into some of those more later. But in terms of RHS, is there anyone that wanted to?
So RHS is quite big compared to other two schools. So it's around 450 per grade. Yeah. So in our graduating class, there's around 450, and we don't have special majors, but we do have 3 specialized programs for mostly the sophomores.
Sophomore and junior year programs.
Yeah, sophomore and junior year programs. One of them is ELISA, which is more of like the arts kind of program. One of them is called the RAP program, which is the sciences program. And basically, for RAP, I know that if you do RAP, you end up having to do a capstone project in your senior year, where you basically have one big research project that you work on, and you also have many opportunities to work at Valley Hospital along with some qualified professionals. And the third one, I don't know as much about because I don't know a lot of people in this program, but it's called AMSTED, which is like the
it's like a history.
It's a history-focused program. And if you take any of these 3 programs, basically a lot of your other classes will be centered around like the subject matter of what program you're in. For example, if you take RAP, which is a science program, then in your English class you might have to analyze like a death not in a literary manner, but rather how like scientifically that person died in the novel.
What is the full name of RHS?
Ridgewood High School. Yeah.
It's also a magnet school?
No. It's public school.
Oh, because this is a
Yes.
Yeah, so we're trying to do some comparisons in between stuff.
we're like another town.
Yeah.
How many people here actually live in Ridgewood? I just wanted to
Show of hands.
But I think Ridgewood High School tends to be pretty comparable, or they're better than a lot of town schools that are around here. So I think it's a pretty good point to base your comparisons on. Yeah. All right. Is there anything else? No. All right. Well, I guess we're gonna get into some of the questions. Yeah. So the first question is just in general. What was the favorite part of your high school, or what's your? Yeah. What do you like best about your high school?
I don't even know the answer to that.
All right. Let's start with. Where should we start? It doesn't need to be in order. Someone.
For me, BT. What I like the most about BT isn't really like anything academic. I think the main thing about BT is that we get a lot of kids from different towns, so I was able to expand like what I thought like a normal kid was, because I actually live in Ridgewood, so I think like the Ridgewood kids are actually a lot different from kids from other towns. So being able to like experience that and have a lot of kids from different backgrounds and stuff, it really opened my eyes as like what the world is really like, and that's what I'm most appreciative of. Like just the people that I met at my school. I think that would be my favorite part of high school. Or coming to like a school like BT and BCA, because you get to see like what kids from other towns are like.
And also, like, BT is comparatively smaller than both BCA and Ridgewood High School. So because it's small, then you get sort of more focused treatment from all the teachers and other guidance counselors, so you can like really get to know them.
So RHS, I mean, this is kind of similar to what was said already, but my favorite part would definitely be like the people that I met and talked to, because even though, yes, other towns do have like more variety of people, there already is like very different people who live in Ridgewood. So talking to them and kind of going outside of my comfort zone by talking to people who might have a different standpoint or a different background than I do really enriched my high school experience.
The nice thing about having like a big high school is that no matter kind of like what you like or like what you're into, you can always find people who have your same interests, and you can find like your group within such a big environment. So that was something that I really appreciated.
BCA kids left.
Want to go for it, Victoria?
I mean, I kind of agree with like the part about people, especially because BCA, like as you know, it's like it's as what was said about BT and BCA, it's super diverse. You get kids from all over the county, and I think like since like I'm going to college next year, like looking back, I see that it was a very like it was good preparation for like meeting new people in college as well, because when you go into BCA, you go to a new school with so many people that you've never met before, and you really have to like kind of push yourself out there to make new friends and find the people that will become like the people that you're with for 4 years. And going to college, I think that's a really good experience to have had in high school.
I really liked how easy it was to access opportunities. I feel like we love to complain as BCA kids, like a lot of the things that we do are kind of BS or shady. Some of the assignments are reasonable, but when I think about it, when I reflect on my 4 years here, I do think that some opportunities were just handed to us that would be kind of hard to access at other schools, and that's how easy it is to access these opportunities and the variety of opportunities that are available. Both really impressed me and is it's very valuable to my experience overall.
You want to give some examples for the opportunities?
Oh, sure. In terms of sure, I think there are many academic as well as extracurricular opportunities. In terms, I'm very involved in the math team. In terms of getting involved in math contests, there's a great framework that's already in place so that you can focus on achieving your potential rather than building the foundation for you to do that. I use a lot of things in computer science and robotics. The research opportunities, of course, should be mentioned. I feel like a significant minority of students participate in the research opportunities, and it's extremely easy to get involved. The school will fund your research.
Well, you do need to pay a little
You need to pay a live fee, but I assure you that the school has spent a lot more money on my research than I've paid in live fees. It's very accessible in terms of having your own project, which is something that even a lot of undergraduates might not have the opportunity to do. So.
Yeah, and I think that especially with opportunities, since we are a little bit smaller, I think it's if you want to do something, it's much more accessible to break into and to start doing. Like the clubs and everything are very easy to join, and we do have like designated club time. I'm not completely sure about the other schools, but we have time where you can do clubs, and we have some morning clubs and stuff. And I guess other than that, what I like best about BCA is, of course, the people. Like if you can find the type of people that you want to find, and I think there's a lot more. The people there are very motivating for you because they're all doing such amazing things that kind of motivates you to do more stuff. and I guess it depends on who we talk to. But I think it's very good as a motivator to try to do more stuff in the future.
So I'm new, okay? I'm new. First time I attend this kind of seminar. I wanted to know, so other high schools also have similar clubs and academic stuff as well as other activities. So all I hear here, not to be critical, I just try to understand. So you mentioned about math club, a math competition. Besides math, what else? What is unique? What is the unique things that differentiate BT or BCA over, other high school?
I think we have
high school. Excellent. Don't mean to.
I will save the question for later. We have a question like that coming up.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll
Just under some
yeah. I think we'll try to be more specific going forward.
Okay.
But yeah, thanks for the question. All right, Jason.
Oh, yeah. Well, I actually, in response to that, I think my answer is going to be pretty cliche in response to how everyone else thinks, but I definitely do think the best part of my high school experience was the fact that, especially coming to a school with a Manna school where it's pulling kids from 70-some towns, you get such a wide variety of kids. Like, I was born and grew up in Fort Lee. So the kids I was surrounded by were the exact same type of kids, and almost everyone had the very similar interests. But when you start to go to a different high school where you have kids who are all interested in different things, like, you really find that, like, there's always a group for everyone. You never have a few kids, sitting alone at lunch or in the side because they didn't really have interests that others shared. You have the kids who are interested in math. You have the kids interested in theater, robotics. And while that definitely is true in a lot of schools, I think schools like BCA where they pull from different towns, you definitely get that wide variety of, I guess, cultures in a sense.
I feel like the culture's point is really important. I think the culture that we have in many of our sub communities is very helpful, and you benefit from the wealth of knowledge from upperclassmen, your peers, as well as faculty members. And I think a lot of it's not easily describable. A lot of it is intangible, but I personally feel like I have benefited a lot from just the environment around me, as well as, of course, the access to resources that I mentioned.
And I think one more thing. I think it's about culture. It's very important for us to, like, all the time I think we forget as BCA or BT or RHS students, like we kind of, since we're in this environment for 4 years, we kind of normalize it, and that's our new normal. But I think it is important to remember. I think we are as BCA students. I think it's very good for us that we are. I think the expectations are generally a little bit different in between the different high schools, and I do think that generally it's much like people are not judgmental, obviously, and they're very open for you guys, very open and very. Everyone expects a lot out of us, I think, and a lot of the time that could backfire. But I think in general, it's kind of like our teachers expect a lot, and sometimes the teachers will not be happy. But that's because their expectations are very, very high. So it's definitely very good if you want to try to get, it's very, very everything is very available to you. All right. So is there anything else? If not, I think we're gonna move on to our.
Oh, I did also mention another thing that's been important to my experience is actually that this might not be a very popular opinion, but I found BCA to be not very competitive. I did not find. I didn't. No, that's not what I meant. I meant that. I don't. That's not what I meant. I just meant that the environment seems to be very helpful. I never really thought about competing with other people that much. I think it helps that we don't have a weighted GPA system. We don't have class ranking. But I don't know. But in terms of feeling stressed in terms of competing with other people, that's not something I felt. And we do a lot of different things. A lot of the kids do different things, and we all try to excel in our own ways. And I feel like that's helpful.
I think I want to give a different. So sorry, that got one off.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I couldn't see you calling that a bit too big. I think I want to give a different opinion to that. I definitely do think BCA is competitive, but I think it's competitive in a good way. While there's people who joke about how they're snakes and backstabbers, I've never encountered a single student who goes out of their way to screw another student over just to get a leg up. But what I do think is that everyone at BCA is or schools like BCA, BT, and other really high up regular town high schools like Tenafly, Ridgewood, like these really competitive, good schools. Everyone there is really competitive. They all want to go to the best colleges, make use of the resources, but it's like this friendly competition that kind of eggs you to keep on going. You know, seeing that my friends don't just stop at the regular courses, but they go above and beyond, whether they take higher level courses or try and skip a few grades in math. You know, that makes me want to feel like I need to work harder, but if anything, that's only pushing me to further excel, rather than making me feel lesser, in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not going to be as cooperative as college, obviously, since a lot of our assignments are not really group assignments or something, and a lot of the time we end up working on it more individually, I think. But it is definitely true that if you ask someone to help you with something, they'll help you with something within the amount of time that they have. And I think it is kind of, it's a little bit annoying sometimes that we're not all in the same town, because it's difficult to, like if you want to have a group project, it's difficult to meet up with each other when you're living all across Bergen County. But so a lot of it has to happen over like Skype, or I don't know if anyone uses Skype anymore. But what, you know, some similar thing, and it is a little bit more difficult, I think, to just work together in general, because, you know, we're all very busy. But it's not like they're not going to work with you if you ask them to help you with something. Okay. Well, I guess in a similar vein to our first question, our next question will, I think dislike is not a good word. So what do you think could be improved most about the school?
Wait, okay. Well, so I'm from BT again, so I think one thing I would like to improve is relating to the extracurriculars, because we're different from BCA. We only have clubs after school on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and technically you're only allowed to join 2 clubs, but I like joining way more than 2 clubs. But it's like really hard to handle your time if you're only allowed like 2 hours every week to do these extracurricular activities. So something I would change about BT is maybe be like BCA and give more time for students to like pursue their own interests.
Going off that, something else about BT, I want to caveat this by saying that I don't want to deter anyone from like applying to BT from what I'm about to tell you, but there's 2 main things that I don't like about BT. One, we don't get a lot of funding.
We're definitely not like BCA.
Yeah, we don't. We're kind of poor technically. like for yeah, but like yes, okay. They get a lot more funding than us. We don't do anything, so that's like one of the main things. We don't get enough money, I guess. Number 2, geographically wise, I don't think it's the best place to have a high school. If you guys didn't know or haven't visited the school yet, we're right across from Teterboro, like the airport.
Yeah.
And so, geographically speaking, it's not the most optimal place to have a school. But I think they're trying to change that. They said, some people like they're petitioning to like move us to like Paramus or something.
When there's like a really heavy rainstorm, like our parking lot floods, so we have to leave school early. So it's like not that.
Yes. So those are probably the 2 main things. But other than that, I still think it was a great place to go, and I would not have gone anywhere else. Yeah.
I think I have 2 major complaints with BCA. One being from engineering. There's definitely a different, like in terms of how the school views the different academies and how they prioritize them. You know, engineering is often not as regarded as highly as the other academies like med and business, and you very evidently see that in terms of funding. When I joined engineering research my freshman year, I was told by my mentor I needed to go out and buy my own hot glue gun and hot glue sticks. The med students all got roughly $3,000 to spend on whatever. They could buy their own cells, and they could also use $1 million microscopes. And the argument from the school was that our funding was towards biology, so we're only allowed to contribute that funding towards kids pursuing biology. So I was, in a sense, kind of forced to move over to the bio side of my school if I wanted to properly make use of all my school's resources. But I don't think that's necessarily 100% fair, considering I came in with an interest in engineering but was kind of shut down just because I didn't get the same resources. And then the other one being that I definitely don't think BCA has anywhere near your typical high school spirit, as most schools do. You know, it's something that most parents don't think about too much, but a lot of the kids do. our sport team is god awful.
Yeah.
We
share
sports.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we're the second lowest ranked school in sports in all of New Jersey. I don't know what school is worse than us, but we're very low.
Really, yeah.
And with that, we don't
Wait,
have.
but like the tennis team is okay.
We have a good team. But like
Some teams are good.
Like we
The
don't have your.
football team is really bad.
Yeah, we don't have your typical like football games. You won't see kids running around BCA being like, yeah, I'm so happy to go here because BCA. It's more of this like sense of we'll get through together, but that's not it.
No one goes together on Fridays to see football games.
Yeah.
I don't think, except for blackout.
You miss out on your typical high school experience. That's definitely for sure.
Ridgewood High School, there's definitely a school spirit, and if people are like, on the football team, they'll like wear their jerseys to class, so you know.
No. They wear like a full like suit.
Yeah, they'll wear like their whole like uniform to class, and usually we have like pep rallies every so often, and teachers don't require you to go to them, but it's usually we love like cheering for each other at like depending on sports events, like music, like performance events. Like recently we just had Tunes and Junes, which is our like last band concert of the year basically. And we had so many like alumni come back and watch, and a lot of the friends and like siblings and people who aren't even in band, like just from our school, they all came to support. And when they were cheering for like the graduating seniors, like, and I was one of them, I felt like really kind of like proud in a way that like all of these people are like from my school and they came to like see me and the other seniors who were performing. And sorry, this is supposed to be being I mean, I could also, one thing that I really dislike about, that was a really fast transition, but if I were to say one thing I don't like about Ridgewood High School, it would be the scheduling for sure, because I do band, which is music, and if you do a music, then you won't be able to do art. And basically throughout my 4 years of high school, I wasn't able to do like pottery, which I really wanted, or like music production I couldn't take because it was an elective. And if you take a like choir, orchestra, or band, basically you don't have any other electives to take outside of your 4 courses and your language. So that's basically my one big complaint about Ridgewood High School.
We spend all of our money on our football team. They're really good. But like the arts, we don't get as much money. Like the music programs don't get as much as they probably should, considering how good they are.
Yeah.
And so like we spend a lot on sports, but if you're not a sports person, if your kid isn't like really into sports, then you kind of like lose out a little bit because that's such a big part of our school.
That might be universal. Like each school has whatever program or like section of the school that they probably like the best. And
if you're not part of it,
yeah,
then
kind of.
I have some things to say about BCA. So the first one is probably that like there's not that much opportunity for you to take on your interest in different academies. So like I'm in the visual academy, and like when I was in 8th grade and I applied to BCA, I was like really interested in art and graphic design, but like so when I got to BCA, I found that I might be more interested in maybe other subjects like computer science or medical, or because it's like so diverse and you see all your friends with these different interests, you think you might want to try them out too. But at BCA, it's like once you apply to the academy, then like you're set in that academy and you can't change it at all. So, and there's a lot of classes and opportunities in other academies that I wanted to try out, but like one thing about BCA is that you're not really allowed to do that if they're academy-specific courses. And we do have electives in different academies, but this kind of brings me to my next point, but it's like we have elective hour at our school, which is at the end of the day, but the thing is like, the thing about our school is that if you do sports, then because our school ends at 4:10, so, and sports start at 4:30, so that last hour, elective hour, like, if you do sports, then you can't really take electives during that hour, so that's kind of like something that you might miss out on if you have like conflicting interests with like your sports and your academic interests.
I do want to say, I do kind of think that it is a little bit difficult to like our school. It's a little difficult to take academy specific classes out of your academy. Not a little, very difficult. But I think our school likes to. Our administration very much likes to talk about this one kid that was able to take a theater class, but that's one kid. I think that, but in general, if you do want to explore something outside of your academy, I do think that the electives are not a bad way to do it. But I do think that a lot of the best kids in our school are very, very good at what they do, and I think a lot of that is because since we do get some free time, a lot of your progress in a subject has to be pretty self-motivated, where you kind of have to be able to pursue opportunities that are not necessarily given to you in forms of a class or something. Like a lot of people go out externally to try to pursue, like even though we do have research opportunities in our school, a lot of people do try to kind of reach out to external people or something that might help them. Or I think our biology program is very good. But other than biology, if you want to do some other research, I think it's best for you to probably look for something maybe yourself. I think some people disagree with me, but I do think that in terms of something that I would like BCA to change, I think that, of course, you do have to be pretty on your feet about, since there's so many opportunities being thrown at you, you really do have to, I really do wish there was a little bit of pacing, but you really do need to stay on top of everything and just make sure that you're paying attention to everything. And I do think that some people, sometimes it's kind of difficult for, the social environment is obviously very, very different from BCA, compared from BCA to RHS or something. And I feel like making friends we don't really learn how to make friends. Although I feel like some people are better than others. But it's a little. I think in college we'll figure it out eventually. But it shouldn't be too much of a difference. But I think it's better. I think the school spirit and social scene could be a little bit better, definitely.
I think that I agree with Edward, but I do think that the average student. I lived in Tenafly, and I went to middle school in Tenafly, and coming to BCA, I thought that the average person at BCA was 10 times nicer than the average student at my middle school. Just saying. And my experience has been overwhelmingly positive. I would also go along with the academy complaint. I despise the academies. There is no reason for there to be 7 academies that are so limiting, I think, to your experience. I mean, I also think that it's not a good idea to specialize so early on. For example, the medical academy. I don't think anyone should be studying medicine in high school. You cannot study medicine in college. You have to wait until after college to study medicine. I think that if you want to look at other health professions, a medical academy wouldn't be as bad, but most medical academy students want to be doctors. And that means they have to go through 4 years of undergrad before they can actually study medicine at a medical school. And I don't like that at all. And I feel like we should have a more integrated curriculum that emphasizes the liberal arts. That's my complaint.
And what I heard here, a lot of negative from BCA. Is there anything positive at BCA?
we did the positives in a previous question.
You should start with the positive first.
Oh, we did start with the positive.
Oh, we missed it.
But I give BCA a 9.8 out of 10. It has been an incredibly positive experience for me overall, and I'm glad that I went here over my town high school.
I definitely do have to note, this was a comment by the head history teacher of the history department. If you're coming to BCA to learn history, don't. You should go to your regular town high school. But if you're coming here to learn something STEM related or theater or one of the more niche academies such, definitely by all means come here. And I think that really speaks to the different resources. I feel like not too many students do end up coming to BCA for the writing programs or the liberal arts programs or the history programs. But if you do, I don't recommend it. I think that the amount of prioritization that the STEM, because at the end of the day, BCA is a STEM magnet school, or at least that's the way we try to advertise ourselves. So, if yeah, I guess that's about it. Don't come if you're trying to learn for history.
But like on the other hand, I think the law major and the business major are two of the best majors at Bergen Tech, because like I study law, so my teacher in freshman, sophomore, and junior year, she was actually an attorney, an actual attorney, so she knows like all the case law, and she knows like how to teach every single case and every single lesson. So if you're really interested in legal studies, or you just want to like learn a bit more about like government because I think anybody, no matter what career they pursue in the future, it's really important to know like your basic rights and what like the laws that you should know about the land. So even if you just want to learn something new, I think BT, like the law program, is a really good choice.
Yeah, basically RHS is a really nice, well-rounded high school. So if you don't have an exact idea of what you want to pursue that early on in life, come to RHS. We have almost everything. So if you don't happen to get into BT or BCA, it's still a very great experience for high schoolers at Ridgewood High School. And especially the music program, our band director likes to brag about it all the time because he's actually from Glen Rock, and he brought his daughter, who lives in Glen Rock, to study at Ridgewood High School because of our music program. And we also have a lot of extracurriculars, a lot of different kinds of sports that you could do. You could try out like bowling, I don't know, golf, yeah, football.
Oh, football.
Yeah,
We don't.
yeah, the big one. Lax. Our girls' lax team is really good. People get like scholarships all the time. And outside of sports, we even have like other extracurriculars. Like I'm in a very niche team, I guess you could say, because I'm in the Latin academic team, which is basically like a Latin quiz bowl. So like, it's really, really, really obscure, but since Ridgewood High School is such a big school, there are so many different things that you could do. And
yeah, and I heard like a lot of the other schools, they were talking about how like they're limited in like time frame for which your clubs can meet and your extracurriculars can meet.
BCA is not.
Okay,
Oh,
well,
BT is.
But basically, like for RHS, all of our clubs meet during lunch. Everyone has the same lunch, so that's just like a free hour basically for everyone. And then for extracurriculars, they meet on the weekends, after school, whenever. But basically, we have like a lot more freedom. Yeah, that's like a okay. But like yeah, but like most of our clubs and extracurriculars, they're very like open to join. Like you can kind of just like walk in and like sign off. Like it's totally like up to you. We don't have any limits on like activities or like club numbers that you can join. It's basically whatever you want to explore.
like literally even in your senior year, if you wanted to try something new, you could just join a club. You could walk in and be like, "Hi, can I start coming to meetings?" And then you'll be part of the club.
If we're hijacking our dislike question with advantages, we can do that too. So I do think that I do think that our it does. I think BCA students like to complain a lot about like we like to make positions and stuff when we don't think that our administration is doing something that we want them to do. Like they blocked Facebook once, and we were very mad about that. And they unblocked it, but I think our school is very. I don't take your complaints too seriously. I think it's a very, very amazing place to come, even if you're interested in like our business academy is good. Every academy is very good at what they do, and if you're very interested in something, there is very much not a lack of opportunities for you to do stuff. And
I think so. If you're a high achieving student and you want to come to an environment that's where you will be surrounded by people more like you, maybe, then I would encourage you to apply. And I kind of disagree with Jason. Even if you're interested in the humanities and social sciences or the arts, I would still encourage you to apply. That's my opinion.
all right. Okay, so our next question is more specific, should be shorter. What kind of workload okay, this is not phrased very well. What kind of workload does your school require from you, and does it change from year to year? So, like, is it more? I know some people think that junior year is the worst year. You know, do you find that to be true?
Honestly, it varies for basically everyone because teachers are different and classes are different. And sometimes a CP class, which is like the regular class, could be really hard for its level, and an AP class, like AP literature, could have very little work. Like, I remember in freshman year, I took an advanced history class, which didn't really have an honors rating, which I thought it should, and it was harder than my other two classes of history, which were both honors in sophomore and junior year. And the AP literature class that I took this year and senior year was so much easier than my freshman, sophomore, and junior classes, even though I took CP in freshman year, honors in sophomore year, and AP in junior year. And it also depends on the teacher teaching the class. Like for math, we have several different teachers with different teaching styles, and one of them specifically is known for his very harsh, but harsh and fast-paced style of teaching. So basically, if you're his student, your grades might not be very good, but you'll definitely learn a lot about whatever subject matter you're learning. And some other teachers might be easier teachers, like you'll have an A, easy A, but you might not know the material as well. And for overall, if I were to say how my different years compare to each other based on difficulty and workload, I would say probably it peaked around senior year first semester, because when that time we also had to do a lot of the college applications and essays, so, and also first semester grades were also kind of important. And for Ridgewood High School, not a lot of AP classes are offered early on, so we do have a weighted GPA, so if your weighted GPA won't look too great compared to other schools, but based on my understanding, colleges usually compare students to other students from the same school. We don't really have a class ranking. They basically have
they do percentiles.
Yeah, they do percentiles. So this is the first to 0 to 15, I guess, and then this is 15 to 30. Yeah, but they don't give exact class rank. This person is ranked first, this person is ranked second. We don't really do that.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts about this. So, first of all, all of our classes, at least our school claims, are taught at the honors level or above. And that was a bit confusing because I wasn't sure if I should put honors PE or something on my transcript. but apparently, so apparently all of our classes are on. So we don't really have CPE, the designations where you do advanced or CP or honors. It's just the class, and later on we do some. I think we have less AP classes than a normal school might have. But we also have a lot of IB classes, and IB classes it's International Baccalaureate. It's kind of like AP, but it's supposed to be more multi-perspective than AP. And I think it's so a lot of IB classes that we take are going to be 2 years. So all of our literature and our history and our language, or our foreign language, is generally IB. And if you're a business kid, you can take all of our classes that are IB.
That's for junior and senior year.
And then these classes are generally 2 years long, and so. But in terms of difficulty, I do think that even though some teachers will be easier, some teachers will be harder, it kind of averages out in a given year. And I think that your schedule, it's very. I think in general, junior year. I think I agree with them that senior year in the beginning, the first or second trimester is going to be the hardest, and then junior year comes in at a close second, and then it goes to sophomore year and then freshman year, and then the third try of senior year is a little bit weird because it's not it's easier, but it is easier, but you just don't care. I think that I do think that the workload is a little bit harsh, and that sometimes in some other schools you would have a lot of time after school to pursue what you want to pursue or to do sports or something. And I think at BCA you get a little bit less of that. But I think that the opportunities or the breadth of opportunities that are afforded to you are more than make up for it, even though it's a little bit more difficult for you to prioritize your time. And if you're not as good at time management, then you're going to end up either, deciding which of your assignments to not do, or deciding which of your assignments, or deciding which of your extracurriculars to not do, or just trying to guess, or deciding how much sleep to not get. But I do think if you're very good at managing it, you can do everything, but you shouldn't do everything. Yeah. So, but I do think that some classes will definitely take up a lot more of your time than other classes. But teachers are generally very helpful if you go and ask them for help. Even though, I think our class, for math especially, you have a choice in terms of which math class to take. You have a choice in terms of which, you kind of have a choice in terms of which math class to take. You have a choice in terms of which language class to take. And I think we're going to get into a little bit later, but for math classes in particular, you do need to kind of keep in mind what the workload is like and how much you plan to put into it. Our class is annoying, but yeah, well.
I think another thing about BCA is that the workload kind of varies across academies. So, I think there's definitely a conception that some academies are harder than others. I know that since I'm in the visual academy, my academy's specific classes design and production and foundations of visual art probably aren't as intense as say engineering or med specific courses that those students have to take. So if you're applying, you should also keep that in mind, but also you should apply with your interest.
I would.
Like what Victoria said, I think that's also very true with BT because the different majors, there's different classes that you have to take and different APs as well. So, for example, I'm in law, so we have to write a lot of papers and essays throughout the years. However, another major such as comp sci or aerospace wouldn't have to do as much. Maybe they'll be more focused around memorizing vocabulary terms, but they'll never have to write a 20-page paper.
So, yeah, I would agree with that. There's a lot of nuances between each major or which teachers you get, but I do want to emphasize that the amount of work you do in high school is up to you. Especially at BT, well, maybe not freshman year, because freshman year your schedules are set, kind of. But after that, there's a lot of different courses that you have the option of taking. And regarding that, you kind of determine how much work you want to do. For us, we don't do IBs, but we have a lot of APs. So we have a lot of kids who would take maybe finish high school with over 10 APs, but that's on them. They don't. But you can also opt out of those APs if you don't want to. So basically, the amount of work you get in each course, not only is it just determined by your teachers and your different majors perhaps that you're in, but it's also based on how much work you want to do as a student. So yeah, colleges like to say that they like to look at rigor. So if you're a high achieving student, maybe you want to take a lot more of those courses, but that's all on you. So workload isn't really an issue. It's just determined by how much you want to or are able to handle.
And I think comparing BT with BCA, the academic rigor of BT is less than BCA. Because, for example, our math classes, we have a lot less homework compared to BCA. However, we're still learning the basics, basically the same material.
I think that the workload at BCA is definitely very similar to BT. It's completely dependent on the student. And that, while BCA definitely doesn't have as much flexibility in terms of what courses to take, because a lot of that's kind of preset in terms of what academy you chose or what academy you applied for when you're in middle school. A lot of the work in terms of how late into the night you're going to be working or how late into the night your kid's going to be working, that's purely on the kid. My freshman year, I think, I probably stayed up till 2 to 3 nearly every night. But that was purely because I wasn't used to being so proactive with my work. Middle school had always been a breeze for me. It was a breeze for most of the kids who ended up going to BCA. I was used to maybe studying an hour before a class during my lunchtime and being fine for a quiz or test. But that really changed very fast. Once I got into BCA, I realized I had to study on my own. I had to go out of my way to talk to my teachers. And when I started to realize that, it wasn't until my second trimester. We run a 3-trimester system, while most schools run in quarters. So more than halfway into my freshman year, I started to learn how to properly study and how to properly do my work. and I was able to sleep around 9, 10 every night. I know some friends who can. I have some friends who can sleep like 9 or 10 every single night since freshman year all the way to junior year, and I know others who stay up till 1 to 2, and they take the exact same courses. So it's all dependent on the kid. If the student is able to spend the free time they have during the school day rather than socialize and do work on their work, or at least they're fast workers and they know that, then the workload shouldn't be too much. But if you're the kid who gets home and first watches an hour or so of TV, or first talks to their friends, or has other outside commitments like sports, you have to realize that with that comes a quote-unquote penalty, and sometimes the penalty is sleep time.
And to add on to that, like I know BCA, you guys, like people in BCA have a lot of frees in between their periods. However, in BT, we're not really allowed to have any frees because those frees get filled up with classes. Yeah, because we only have 9 periods a day, and that's the same for the entire school year. So while BCA has a lot of like school time to do their work, we only have like the time from when we get home or after like you get home from sport. Yeah, to do the homework.
I actually do want to clarify some frees. I think we don't have as many frees as you might think we have. I think we have lunch. Actually, this year I have less lunches than days. So I don't have any frees this year. But I think that sometimes you might have, like if you do have frees, I think you can do your work in them. But I also do think it's important to not be a workaholic and to do only work in your frees. And so you should be smart about it, be reasonable.
Yeah, I think also the thing about frees at BCA is that like there's a conception that we have a lot of frees because in freshman year like we don't have as many classes and we do have a lot of frees, but once you get to sophomore and junior year, depending on how many classes you take, and most kids like kind of fill up their schedule of classes, so like pretty much by junior year like your frees kind of disappear, and like I know like for junior and senior year, like I basically like never had any frees except for like lunch and like at the end of the day like elective hour. But I guess it depends on what classes you take, but the frees are like really helpful during freshman year when you're trying to adjust to things and you have a lot more time during the school day to do what you want to do.
So for Ridgewood High School, we have 6 periods in a day, and we have 8 periods in total. So it basically goes in a rotating cycle. And I don't know if this is true for other schools, but basically if a teacher is absent, that counts as a free for the student. And they'll assign like some assignment or some work for the student to do. But basically that student has a free period if the teacher is absent. And usually, like if you have it in the morning, then you can get extra sleep. Or if you have it like right after school, you can leave school, right at the end of school, you can leave school early. And usually if more than one teacher is absent, then that becomes like a huge block of time where the student can either like take initiative and actually do work, or they can goof off. It really, like other schools, it all depends on what the student wants to do. And for us, we have a gym free, which is like you have like a physical education course. For me, for both of us, we took dance as like the physical education elective in senior year, and we had another quarter course, which is first aid, and then the 4th quarter, for that period, you had a free. So it doesn't really count as like you dropped a class. It's just the same for all seniors. You would have a free for that period of that quarter. And usually, some students in senior year choose to drop a class so they can get like an extra block free, but I didn't take that option, which as a second semester senior, I'm kind of regretting a little bit now, but like, I think the last way to get a free basically is a science free. Basically, you have labs, and labs usually take up 2 periods, but if you have the same day of like the rotation schedule, you would supposedly have 2 labs in 1 week, but usually the teacher drops one of those labs on 1 day so we can have a free. So that's how our frees work.
I was gonna say that I think I'm pretty overall academically competent, but I've gone through a lot of academic pain especially this year. Pretty sure my average math test grade has been under 40. It's just insane. But the thing is, for junior and senior years at least, most of this pain is self-inflicted. Because at BCA, I don't think you have a lot of choice in your coursework for your freshman and sophomore years. But for your junior and senior years, you can really take less classes. I'm pretty sure I could have taken 2 less classes if I had wanted to. But we made our choices, and if you make different choices, you might have a different perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I think the reason why we took so many classes this year is because of college. And I do think, I don't want to let math scare you away, because I think our math class is a very, very difficult math class. And a 40 will be curved up to maybe an 80 something. So, and then we have a test curve, and then we have a curve on our overall grade since our.
So my 40 actually went to a 93 after the 2 successive curves. So a 93 is a low A. So that's so sad.
Sometimes our teachers curve our tests and sometimes they don't. So, like towards the AP season, most of our AP teachers started giving us like AP style tests, and our physics teacher, we both had him for 2 years, junior for like physics 1 and senior year for physics C. And he would always curve the tests whenever we got them. And since physics is like a huge curve, 60%. Yeah, we would see our grades go from like a 50 to like an 80. It would be like so surprising. But our Latin teacher, I mean, she is a great teacher. She does do her very best to teach us. But for the AP tests, we all took good tests, and we all got like D's or C's on the test, and she just didn't curve it. So I was supposedly going to be a classics major, but now Latin is my lowest grade because we don't have any other assignments yet. We do have a final project, but that hasn't been handed in yet. So it all depends on the teacher of like if they want to curve your grade or not. But more importantly, it also depends on the students if they want to do the work or not.
I think we're gonna have to. So I'm gonna. Well, one thing real quick. I think a lot of our classes are actually more difficult than AP classes. I think, and it's very. I think the scale of workload is very different in between different schools, and also that's all I wanted to say. I want to move a little bit faster so we can give you some more time to ask questions. So we're gonna go in the next few questions a little bit more at a faster pace. So I'm gonna skip this question for now and just combine the next 2 questions together. So I guess, what types of extracurriculars and clubs does your high school have, and or what types of extracurriculars do and yeah. So how many clubs are you in, and what do you think of the differences in between them?
I think for BCA, there's pretty much every club in Nash. Well, not there's not, basically if you want to do something at BCA, there's always a club for it. And I know this one kid started a listening club or something, and they whistle songs together, I don't know. But and also at BCA, if there's a club that you want to do but it's not there, it's really easy to start a club yourself too. So if there's something you're interested in that someone else might be interested in too, it's really easy to start a club and create that opportunity for yourself.
So for us, for Ridgewood High School, we have I tried counting them, but it was several hundred, so I gave up after 1 page. And that's not including the sports. So the sports probably be several dozen, I would assume. Well, I mean a dozen probably. Okay. And as we mentioned before, you can join. There's no limit on joining clubs. And personally, the extracurriculars I do synchronized swimming, which is not part of Ridgewood High School, and I also do Tri-Am Music Honor Society, which is basically something where musicians go to local hospitals and elderly centers to perform. And I also do Maroon and White, which is a recital series for RHS's talented musicians, I guess, if you want to phrase it that way. And as I mentioned before, I'm also on the Latin academic team, which is basically like a Latin form of quiz bowl. And we've gone to like Harvard and Princeton, Yale to like compete. And it's a really fun way to get to know people who have also a really specific interest. And we also do Asian Fest, which is like a really big club, like at least, yeah, it's activity, but over 100 like people do it, and it's basically a collection of performances from different Asian countries like the Philippines, China, Korea, Japan, India, and basically it is a commitment, but it's very rewarding because there's an in-school performance and out-of-school performance, and it's a really great way to meet a lot of people from your school. And you can also participate in other performances that aren't your country, and even people who might not be Asian also participate in it because they appreciate like the culture. And you don't even have to perform. You can do like art, you can do the decorations around the school, and usually it's an annual thing, and everyone at school gets really excited for it.
So I think in BCA we have a lot of clubs. We have, obviously we have Model UN, we have debate, we have robotics, math team, we have dance stuff like IDA, we have anything you think of we basically have. But I think it's, in terms of the climate, in around clubs, it's very, very, like, if you want to get serious with something, you can pretty easily get serious in a certain topic. I think my experience with running clubs is that a lot of these clubs that you see are pretty low commitment clubs, like if you're in the morning, or if you have a club on Wednesdays, they're like maybe an hour or 2 or 3 a week, and they tend to not be too much of a toll. Like we do like TSA teams or Panasonic for engineering, you maybe spend a few weeks on it and you're done. And I think that if you want to do something that's much, much more of a commitment, like I think it's not a really good example, but for like first robotics, for example, we tried to get a team up last year, and that's basically like, if you want to do it properly, it's like 20 hours a week. And there is, for BCA students, 20 hours is very unreasonable. So I do think that the clubs that you're looking at BCA are very good clubs, but it's also like, you're not going to get more than 5 hours a week out of someone in a club. I think 5 hours is very much pushing it. Yeah.
At BT, we don't have like hundreds of clubs. We have like maybe 20 to 30. And starting a club is probably all actually harder at BT as well, because there's a lot of guidelines you have to take to start a club. I think a lot of it comes down to because of our busing schedules. We can only have clubs on Tuesdays and Thursdays an hour after school, because we have late buses at 4 o'clock, so we have to get kids off campus by that time. We can't have clubs in the morning because our buses show up at different times, so it's really hard to say, oh, can everyone show up at this time in the morning, because it's really hard for each person from different towns, I guess. So for us, we don't have as many clubs, but it is like I started a club at my school, so it's not that hard. So if you want to get a club started, but just maintaining that club, especially after you leave for college, is probably going to be the main issue. But for clubs, I think we have a lot of extracurricular opportunities, but it might just not be as varied, I guess, as the other schools.
And like we're technically only, as I said before, like we're technically only allowed to be in 2 clubs. But, like Colin and I are in 5 clubs, so that's why it's like our
They're low commitment.
yeah they're pretty low commitment. It's just some out of school stuff, and even though like I'm an officer, like a few of them, it's like not that big of a deal when you're taking into account the entire school year.
I was gonna say that at BCA, a lot of the extracurriculars are driven by students, and that's student commitment is highly necessary, and it's also highly variable. You can decide to make a specific club one of your main commitments, and you can easily spend 20 hours a week if you really wanted to, like some people do. But it varies a lot. I personally don't have any low commitment clubs. I only do, or low commitment extracurriculars. I only do things that I have a commitment toward, and I really enjoy. And I got rid of some of the low commitment clubs when I was an underclassman, and that's, I think, another viable path to take when it comes to extracurriculars, as opposed to doing 10 things, for instance.
I think I definitely fell into the trap freshman year of a lot of BCA kids and BT kids, or I guess BCA because we're a lot more open with clubs, while BT kind of has more restrictions on that. I'm trying to join as many clubs as possible, just because like it's a big thing, especially like it's kind of like the arms race. A lot of kids call it, where you just kind of do as many things as possible. I quickly realized half the things were, in my opinion, kind of useless, just because they're incredibly low commitment. I showed up to a meeting, they talked about it, and then we left, and it would just be the same thing for weeks, and I quit. And the only extracurriculars I have left are ones I'm genuinely passionate about, and one of them being Mod UN. That was a great experience, and it really helped me open up as a person, and really taught me how to present myself, and as well as to speak in front of others. I'm really active in my school's student council. I'm the current president of the school, so that was that definitely took a major commitment in terms of my time. And then the only other thing I'm really into is my school's research program.
Sure. Okay, we're gonna keep moving. So the next question is, we're gonna just do one by one in a line, I guess, for this one. So what is your passion, and how do you think your high school has helped you pursue your passion? You want to start, Andrew?
Sure. I don't know if I have one passion really.
Pick one of them.
I'll explain my interest, I guess. I'm in the Science Academy, and I do realize that over my 4 years, I've grown to love science. So science in all its forms, though. I don't have a very specific passion like plant microbiology or something like that. My interests range from psychology to biology, chemistry to physics. And accordingly, I want a broad scientific background in college, so I'll be pursuing a major in chemistry, I think. But at the same time, I value a liberal arts education very much. I think it's important to get exposed to many things. So the things I've been involved in have been pretty different. I'm very, very involved in the math team, as I've said many times before, but I've also done things like help lead racial justice conferences. And my interests are very varied, and that's the way it's going to be in college as well.
I think I have a few interests. I think one of them is robotics, and it's definitely been a very I wouldn't say smooth, but it was a good experience to go through and try to be like a captain of a robotics team, and I think it definitely taught me a lot with managing the team. And since a lot of the clubs tend to be pretty student driven, I do think that. Since in BCA, a lot of the teachers are very, very stressed too, and they have a lot on their plates. So a lot of even though the school does help, a lot of the clubs are going to have to rely more on student commitment, I think. And that was very difficult for us. And it was, it's a whole other story. But I think it was definitely good to be able to, the teachers were there to help you, but I do think that since all the students are very, very talented, it's definitely very possible to do, to be in part of a robotics team or something, and especially I think with internships, the school is very, very good at giving you opportunities to intern in, especially if you're interested in engineering or computer science or computational biology or something.
I think my interests over the years have definitely changed. But right now, I think I really want to pursue computational biology, specifically how AI can be helped used in terms of the healthcare system. But I'm also really interested in international policy. That really stemmed from my Mod UN experience in my school. I think the school definitely helped me cultivate both interests. And I'm trying to find a way I can intersect both of the two once I'm in college. I think in terms of like the computational biology aspect, my school has been fantastic in providing me resources for research-wise. Our research program is definitely, I think, our school's flagship program. And the amount of funding, the amount of resources and mentoring I've gotten really in like a professional level has definitely given me a taste of what that industry is like. And in terms of like international policy, I think my school, not just in Mod UN and like the amount of trips they help subsidize and help bring us to, but our school recently has started a program called the Global Exchange Program, where for an incredibly subsidized cost, they bring us all around the world, whether that be to London, to Dubai, Singapore, Italy, and while it definitely is more of a vacation for some of them, at other times you go into the government programs and they introduce you to their cultures and the policies that they have there. So, and one of the big things is when they went to, I believe it was Israel, they went to like the academic institutions and they spoke about how healthcare worked in Israel and as well as just in other countries around that area. So I think that's how my school definitely helped me push those passions.
I personally, sorry.
No, you can go.
No, I'm just gonna just say one thing. I've personally been on highly subsidized trips to Korea and Bulgaria for math competitions, so there's a lot of opportunities when it comes to international travel.
So at BT, we don't, like I said, going back to my earlier point with like funding, we don't have these trips, even though we're like right across from an airport.
Like even if you want to go visit, like if aerospace wants to visit the airport, they have to pay $30 for a busing fee.
Like across the street.
Yeah.
So we don't travel a lot. But in terms of, for me, I've always been interested in business, and I think my school, especially my major in the business major, has given me a very broad sense of what it means to learn business, because there's a lot of like different things you can do with like a business degree. So at my school, for instance, freshman year, we learned a lot about geopolitical events and maybe like technical analysis, so a lot about like stocks in our first year as freshmen. Next year, sophomore year, actually, we learned about economics and then strategy consultation. So it's basically like no matter what industry you're in, how these businesses compete with another. This year as a junior, we're learning microeconomics and we're also learning accounting. So it's just very broad sense. Next year we're learning derivatives trading, which is more specialized, but it gives you a really broad sense of what it means to become like a business student. So school-wise, it definitely really helped me cultivate my passion. Outside of school, there's not really a lot of clubs dedicated towards the business aspect per se. Like Model UN for sure really helped me learn how to collaborate with people and cooperate. That was really helpful. We also have Future Business Leaders of America, which is it's not the most stimulating, I guess, but it's okay. You can also start a club. Like my friends and I are trying to start maybe like an investment club. So there's that. So extracurricular-wise, I don't think it's as much, but the school definitely does provide ways for you to cultivate your passion through classes that you can take.
So I think it didn't really like nurture what I wanted to do, but it showed me like what I didn't want to go towards because I'm in the law program and I went in thinking like, oh, I want to be a lawyer when I come out of this, or like I want to grow up to be a judge. But then we had field trips to the courthouse, and then we had like different research opportunities as well, and it sort of showed me like being a lawyer isn't as romanticized as in like Legally Blonde. Like although like the knowledge that I learned was really important for any industry that I want to go in, I sort of lean towards business as like Colin and I are both in Model UN, and then we did all these conferences that opened me up to like world issues. And even though I want to pursue business in law, I'm still able to do that because for senior year we're allowed to have an internship, and I'm interning like in a business-related internship then.
I think for me, like, BSA definitely opened my eyes to a lot of different subjects that I might not necessarily have thought of before. So, and like, for BCA, there's so much opportunity to do what you want to do as long as you know what it is you want to do. So for me, like, when I was in 8th grade, I applied to the Visual Academy, and like, I was really interested in art, but because BCA is such like a STEM-heavy school, like even though I didn't really like think of STEM that much before, like BCA definitely like gave me more opportunity to do that, and like made me realize that like maybe like computer science or like something like math or something more STEM related was what I was interested in as well. And I think for the arts at BCA, like it's not really that talked about, but because like when you think of BCA, it's all like math, science, bio, whatever, but I think that the art program at BCA is actually really great as well, because we do get a lot of, like, the art program has, like, quite a good amount of funding as well, and, like, any equipment that may need to be used in the art industry, like, we have so much of that, like, in the visual arts lab. So I think that, like, even though BCA made me more interested in STEM, like, it also had so much opportunity for me to pursue, like, graphic design or art or anything like that. So, and for me, like, my passion, I would say, is like kind of finding the intersection between STEM and art, and BSA definitely allows me to do that. So we have classes like interactive techniques or like interactive design that really combines those two subjects into a really niche kind of study.
So personally, I'm that kind of person that's like interested in too many things. So when it came down to like passions, I kind of realized too late that I was really interested in learning languages and the way languages work. And even if I had realized earlier, Ridgewood High School only, well, technically lets you take one language at a time, realistically, so I wasn't really able to kind of pursue that passion. But another passion of mine, I would say, is music. And in that aspect, Ridgewood High School definitely gave me many opportunities to pursue that, because I played both piano and the oboe in curricular band. There was also like many smaller ensembles that you could join, like maybe the flute ensemble or the percussion ensemble, and there were definitely many performance opportunities that were given to me. For example, my band director would come to me if he had like a performance opportunity, or my other band teacher, he asked me to play in the summer pit orchestra for like a production that our school put on, so that was also a new experience I never got to do before. And I feel like RHS is kind of really hit or miss based on like what your passion is, but my advice would definitely be to ask questions to your teachers and to like others around you if you want to know more.
So for me personally, going into high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had like no idea like what I would want to major in college or anything like that. I just kind of was like, oh, I'll just try everything and see what happens to stick or what I like. And so RHS was really good for that because we have a very like standardized curriculum. So basically sophomore year, freshman year, almost everyone takes the same classes or like the same versions of classes, and you get a really good spread of like things to try because language is required, there's like an arts requirement, things like that, and it gives you like a really good opportunity, especially since like middle school, in my opinion, I think the classes were really limited. Like art was like a joke, and like languages that was really like, you know, like at the level that you would want to be studying these things if you want to like major in it in the future or something like that. So for me, I happened to really fall in love with the social sciences, and through I took AP US History for 2 years, and that really had a big impact on me because through that class I really got to understand and really interact with history in a way that was more meaningful, I guess, to me than I had ever really done before. And because RHS, the first 2 years are so structured, they give you a lot more freedom in like junior and senior year. So for senior year, I ended up taking a human geography class, and I really fell in love with that. And that has really given me sort of like a direction for my future. And so when it comes to what RHS has done to encourage my passions, I feel like the sort of structure and then freedom, so that as like a young person, you learn what there is out there, and then you get to be able to pick what you want to study is really what helped me most.
Okay, so I think we're going to do one more question before we give you guys time to ask questions. We're going to try to give you guys half an hour. So I think this question will be one of the more helpful ones for you. So I guess in terms of your individual school, what do you think best distinguishes your school from other schools, or like what is the distinguishing factor that, like, if you're trying to advertise your school, what would you say? And this is a little bit different from what you like best. This is just what's different about it in general.
Can we start from the other side?
Okay. I guess sort of like in this situation, it would mostly be like the size of our school. We have so many people, so many different things to do. Our sports, if you're not, even if you don't play sports necessarily, like the kind of school spirit, like everyone goes to our football games, it's a lot of fun. Things like that, I would definitely sell RHS on. The band program, the music program is really strong. We have like a huge program. It's all very involved.
Yeah, basically it's very well-rounded. There's so many different possibilities to do. Even if you start something in Ridgewood High School and you don't like it, you're not really bound to it. Like, if for example you think, oh, let's join the, I don't know, math team and let's take like these math classes that are like the most difficult, and then you find that you're really not a STEM person, you might be more of a humanities person. It's super easy, just like switch to the other side or like switch to another topic.
And I know we like talked about being like restricted sort of and like what you can do because we have sort of like a structure to our curriculum. It's easy enough if you find like a passion to sort of make it work, and like if you, like Grace said before, like it's kind of difficult to take more than one language, but if you really wanted to, you could. It just comes at like a sacrifice of like say your music or something like that. So while we do have some sort of like restriction, I guess, it's not like impossible to work around if you really want it, if you know that you really love something
It's really
and you want to pursue it.
It's really flexible.
Yeah.
I think for BCA, the biggest distinguishing factor would probably be the academic environment and culture. So at BCA, like everyone cares so much. Well, not like, yeah, like everyone cares a lot about their academics and their future, and like always like performing their best and to like the best of their potential and everything like that. So I think that was like a really good environment for me, at least, to just be around people who also cared about like their schoolwork. And even at BC, like even the people who might not care as much as other people probably like still care like a really good amount. So I think like just from different from like maybe like a town high school or something, like the environment is really driven and everyone's like really motivated to do all these great things. And like going back to what was said in the beginning, like I think the reason it's so competitive is because everyone really wants to be like the best of themselves, and like everyone really wants to do their best. And I think that's like a pretty, it can like be stressful sometimes, but in general I think it's a good environment to be in.
Well, like contrasting to Ridgewood High School, I think one really good thing about Bergen Tech is the small size, because like there's only like every guidance counselor in our school has 2 majors per grade, so that's only about like 40 students. However, in bigger high schools, maybe they'll have like hundreds of students. And then, so as a result, like I was really able to have like a one-on-one relationship with my guidance counselor as well as my major teachers. So that will really help me like next year for recommendation letters, or if I need to like ask them something about college, the college process, such as like reading my essays. And also, I think BT compared to BCA though, like we're still like the students that really try in their towns, except we're more of like a relaxed environment, so you're still able to like develop what you like to do and like what you want to, like how you want to learn, but you're not really pushed by outside forces to do so.
So reinforcing like what I said earlier about different kids coming from different towns, I think that's also one of the plus things. You get to be with like a more diverse student body group, which I think is important for any person. Not just that, I would also agree with like having a strong relationship, not just with teachers and counselors, but also with like students themselves. I would say I would know about like, I'm saying like 95% of my grade, like on a, like I could say hi to like anybody in the hallway. So like developing those relationships is really important to me as well, because just like it really just feels like a community at BT because it is so small. So I would say that's probably our number 1 plus side.
I think the biggest plus side in BCA, if it can be summarized in one word, is definitely resources. The amount of resources our school has is absolutely absurd, and after having been to our school for like 3 years or so, as well as being on student council and having to talk to the administrators as to what we offer our kids, it's really beyond what I thought any high school could ever give. There was a senior who wanted to do research, but rather than biology, she wanted to do research in dinosaur bones. So our school spent $10,000 to buy her a Spinosaurus jaw, and now we have a Spinosaurus jaw that she sees every day to just like maybe. I guess she got shipped over because her research project was completed. But it's just the fact that I'm interested in dinosaurs. All right, here's a dinosaur fossil that we bought for you. I want to go on an international trip, but I can't afford it. The school will cover it. Or even with our senior internships, I think it's absurd that our school has connections into such high corporate like industries as well. Like one of the things that you have to do as a senior is get an internship. I'm currently a junior, so I'm in the process of looking for one for my next year. And the fact that some like companies like Bloomberg, which Eddie's working in right now, or Merrill Lynch, these companies that on the website they say their interns have to at least have an undergraduate degree. Our school has its own backdoor program where our counselor is best friends with one of the people there, hiring. And every year we have allotted, I think it was like 6 spots at Bloomberg, 4 spots at Merrill Lynch. Opportunities that most high schoolers aren't even allowed to get into, purely because to even make an application you have to be over 18. And I think those resources at BCA should not be dismissed, or definitely need to be taken into account when you are applying.
Yeah. Again, I think I was going to talk a little bit about resources too, and I did a count once. I think combined with the makerspace that's right across the parking lot from us, we have maybe 20 3D printers on our school. There's like 20 total, maybe, and then we definitely have 3 laser cutters total, maybe, combined with the makerspace next door.
Water jet cutters.
Yeah, we have a water jet cutter, we have electron microscopes, we have, basically if you want to do any research, you can do the type of research you want to do. And if you want to build something, you can build something. And I think that if you, it's just generally, I think we're kind of spoiled as a school, and we kind of forget about the environment that we're in, and I think to an extent I am too, so it's a little bit hard for me to try to compare. But I do think that it's just it is pretty crazy what people are able to accomplish if they're motivated enough to do it.
Yeah, I'll say the cliche thing, and it's peers. I do think my peers have been very helpful in just getting me to reimagine myself. They do a lot of great things. They're very accomplished academically, extracurricularly, in terms of their ambitions. So I've really been able to think about myself in a different way, and maybe aim higher in terms of academics, what I can accomplish in certain extracurriculars, what I might be able to achieve, and in terms of college apps too. I would have applied to a very different set of colleges, I think, if I hadn't come to BCA. So that's just peers. They're very inspiring, and you gain a lot just from interacting with them.
Okay, so now we're going to open up the floor to questions. So just, if you have a specific question that's directed to a certain subset of us, that should be clear from the question. Yeah.
So we're a group of parents here, right? So if there's one thing you want to tell your parent, like you wish they have done that with you, just that one thing that you wish your parent had done for you in the high school or middle school time frame.
Well, one thing that I think was really important is that, no matter, I think a lot of your kids are going to, apply to BCA and BT, but you're going to be, more centered around BCA. But I just want to say, no matter if your, child gets into BCA or BT or just, goes back to their public high school, they're always going to, excel in their area, I guess, because, although, my parents, they really wanted me to go to BCA, I'm at BT now, and I'm still, succeeding in all my classes. I still have, really good relationships with my teachers. So it doesn't really matter what they get into as long as it's the best fit for them. I think it'll help them get into whatever college they want to.
I agree from, a different perspective. So basically, I'm really glad, I didn't apply to BCA or BT. I'm really glad that my parents didn't force me to apply, because I'm that kind of person who doesn't really enjoy the STEM as much as a lot of Asian parents would like. But so I really like a lot of the humanities things, languages, arts, music. A lot of disappointments from Asian parents. but I really enjoyed my time at Ridgewood High School because they basically gave me that environment that I could experiment and do all sorts of things. And like what was said earlier, basically each school will be best for your kid if it is the best fit for your kid. So I feel like also you can advise your child on which school to do, but like don't force them into saying no, you must go to BCA or you must like go to another school, because I feel like as a middle schooler, even though you might not know exactly what you want to do, maybe that's like maybe you should choose RHS if they don't know what they want to do. But if they have like a strong passion in like medical things, or like a strong passion in like computer science or some other science, you should strongly encourage them to apply to BCA or BT.
One thing that I feel like parents a lot of like dismiss, that they kind of see these high schools as like maybe like the end goal, but like again, like was said earlier, it's a more competitive environment, and with that comes a lot more hardships for kids. Maybe they were the top in their middle school, but not so much at high school, and that might like hurt them emotionally. Because I know a lot of kids who said like, oh, I wish I didn't come here because next year when we're applying for colleges, I feel like I could have been valedictorian from my hometown instead of here where I'm just like maybe average or maybe even like below average. So there's that to consider if your child really will be able to succeed in an environment like this. So I feel like that's something that parents should also remember.
I think also like if you or your child are considering applying to BCA, I think since you're applying to different academies, like I think it's really important for if your child is applying to BCA for them to apply to what they're interested in, because if you do end up going to BCA for something that you don't really want to study, then like you'll just add to like the misery of them being there, like on top of the workload and everything. So I think like it's important to really like have the support from your parents of like what you want to do, and like the important thing is to succeed and excel in like what you personally want to do, not necessarily like what might produce like the best results or something.
I think it's important to realize that like this is definitely a cliche, but the school doesn't define the student defines the student. And don't think that when application season comes, or when you get that letter and your kid either did or didn't get into BCA or BT, that's the end. That's where the end of the line goes. You know, the same kid who will succeed at BT, chances are or BCA are going to be succeeding at the regular town high schools. And I know so many kids who have gone to BCA and BT thinking it was a regular high school, which is a bit harder, and they heavily regret it. And their parents are saying, you know, I'm so proud to be able to boast that my kid goes to BCA, until the kid ends up dropping out their junior year or their senior year when they're so close to finishing it. So remember not to pressure the students, and understand that chances are, if you think your kid is going to excel at a higher level school like BCA or BT, they'll do equally, if not even better, at their regular town high school.
Are there any other questions?
So in terms of time management, how you learn from your high school, how you manage your time effectively?
I feel like priorities are always number one. Teachers, I feel, are really lenient. Like last year during winter, I played basketball, and that really took a huge chunk out of my time. Like that was a 6 days a week commitment with like I'd have like 2 hours each night to do homework, but I wanted to go to bed before like 12. So with that, I feel like time management is important, but you can also be really, I think you should talk to your teachers. I think teachers are usually really lax, and they understand that you have a lot of other commitments. They'll push back deadlines for you. So I think there's that to also consider, because I feel like work is always, they don't give us like an insane amount of work.
No,
so
I think like BT's, that's the good thing about BT compared to BCA. Like BCA, it's like stretching you to your like very limit, but BT, it's sort of like they know your limit, but they'll like sort of meet you halfway. And like although sometimes like I'll have to do my homework during homeroom, or like study for a test or quiz during lunch, like which I didn't really have to do during middle school. But like over the years, I learned like, oh, I don't have to stress about so many things at the same time, because that'll just make me more stressed. And then that really helped me manage my time better in the future.
For me personally, I didn't. The academics were like moderate, but I just had a lot of activities outside of like academics in general. I played a sport, which is kind of like a year-round sport, and I also do music, which means I have to practice more than one instrument. And I didn't really ask teachers to extend deadlines, but I feel like some of them would have if I did ask. And for me personally, I thought the best thing to do was just like write down all of the homework that I had and kind of organize it by priority. So I used like an online thing called Google Keep. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but basically I would kind of color code it by like priority, and I would kind of make like the ones due in the next like 1 or 2 days like red, and then orange for the less important ones, and then the yellow for like not as important ones. And like I also recorded not only like academic deadlines like quizzes or essays, but I also kind of recorded like other tasks, like reminding myself that like I had a concert the next day to practice for, or I had like a swim meet the following week that I had to practice for. And if I like just keep in mind that I need to stay off social media and like YouTube. So basically what I did was during finals and midterm season and AP season, I deleted Facebook, Instagram, like Snapchat, YouTube, everything. Basically I deleted everything. So I mean, I kind of did it of my own volition. And I mean, each person has like their different way to like manage like their time. But for me personally, if I deleted those things, I couldn't even like access them. So it was the best way for me.
What about other kids about the social media? Because I really feel it's bothering. And it's like constantly interrupt.
I think social media, like, while definitely, you know, I use social media way too much than I should, and that definitely does hinder my work time. But also understanding that, like, entirely the rule of let's turn off your phone and you don't get to touch it while you're studying, I have never thought that'd be a good idea in terms of teaching kids to study. I can definitely say, had it not been for group chats or past group chats or me and my kid, like for my AP chemistry class, I'm currently definitely struggling in that class, and I have a group chat just of every single student in my classroom, and the night before a test, that group chat is blowing up. And I don't understand number 7 in the review, and I don't know why the teacher got this answer. Someone else can break it down to me. And it's more of like a study group than anything else. I know my grade uses like a messenger, or iMessage for texting on iPhones, but you know other grades have used Messenger on Facebook. Some people have even gone to Skype group chats. You know, understanding that communication is so vital for students to be able to help tutor one another, that you know it's not necessarily all social media or all communication with friends hinders you.
But how can you persuade your kid only have like a study group? They have like all kind of, I mean, I don't think parents will like party, buying clothes, all kind of,
I think
how to, you know, make them not to use too much of those. They even have the game, they play game on those things. Stupid things.
While it's important to prioritize your work and everything,
I mean, from your point of view, how to persuade, because every time when I say that, it's like, oh, I feel very bad, so the relationship become very intense.
If you designate a specific time just for fun, like if you say, okay, you get your work done, but then you get like an hour or like an hour and a half, you can do like whatever you want. You can like play games, you can like text your friends for fun. But like I think it's important that it's like the other time doesn't mean like no phone. It just means like stay off of like the fun part of like mobile devices, because as it was mentioned before, communication is very important, and you never know if like someone might send you a material that like hey, this actually really helped me study, and like a study guide or like a collaborative work. Sometimes group projects, people communicate, and then if you don't get those messages, you either miss out on like what's being spread or like what they need to talk to you about. And nowadays I feel like students don't really use email to communicate with each other, or like iMessenger. I mean, I meant to say iMessage. iMessage sometimes also people don't have iPhones, so for me personally, it kind of bothers me when it's like green and instead of blue. It's like something really small,
Yeah.
but like, so I use Messenger too, because most people have a Facebook, or some people use like GroupMe, which is like I think if you have an email, you can sign up for group, or phone number, you can sign up for GroupMe. It's a similar like messaging system. But
Sorry,
you can go.
Oh, I think maybe this might be a bit different opinion, but I think the best way to let a kid persuade them is to kind of let them figure it out on their own.
Yeah.
Don't handhold the kid through the process, because that, if anything, is just going to have a horrible relationship between you and your kid. You don't want to be the parent who takes away the kid's phone and then have the kid complain about you to their friends when they're at school. Oh, my mom took away my phone, they're so annoying.
I think like an important aspect of this is like to trust your child that they can like make their own decisions as well, because if you do let go of them and let them like screw up a couple of times and make some mistakes, then like what they learn from that is going to be a lot more valuable than like them hearing all the time like get off your phone, get off your phone.
Like basically like if you fall, you have to let them get up on their own kind of, because if they fall and you kind of pick them up, then they'll kind of get used to that. Like, and in college they're gonna be virtually like alone, so they're not gonna have that kind of support system once they get into university. So they need to learn how to basically recover themselves after like falling down, basically.
I think that I actually will do one.
No, you can.
All right. I think that yeah, you do. Especially high school is very different from middle school. You have to give them a much longer leash, I think. And I think there are very. What you do is very much dependent on your child, and it's very much something that you get to figure out by yourself. And I think my opinion is that it's better to give them more free reign than control. But I also think that completely free reign is not necessarily the way to go. And I think this is something that maybe our answers are not the best at giving you advice.
Yeah.
Because what we think is best for us is oftentimes what is not best for
Yeah.
us. And a lot of the time I tell my mom not to do a certain thing and she asks me what else should I do, and I have no answer to that. So, yeah, so I think that it's just like, yeah, I'm sorry, not more helpful, but I think it's
providing guidance and letting the kid understand that, if they do end up being on their phones, by all means, that's your own choice. But if you're going to come back and complain about getting an F on a test, also letting them know that chances are it was because you didn't study enough. But rather than going the step further and saying, I'm taking your phone away forever, that's probably not the best way. But rather showing them that you got this failure because of your choices not to actually be proactive with working. I think most kids, especially in high school level, because high school is a time of learning and of growing up to become an adult. And I think you have to let them realize that they have to realize what they're doing wrong and to be able to fix that. And like I guess she said earlier, it was on her own end that she deleted her social media. I know I've done that in my past when I realized I spent too much time on Snapchat instead of studying. And letting the kid understand that themselves is a lot better than you telling them or forcing them to do it.
Because I feel like at the end of the day, their future is on them. So what they do determines what's going to happen. Not just that, based on like my personal understanding, like my parents don't really care, I guess. Well, no, I don't want to phrase that way. They give me a lot of free reign because I force them to give me a lot of free reign. But I feel like I have a lot of friends who parents don't. And with that, I see that those are the kids that kind of like are kind of irresponsible. They go out, they party and stuff because their parents tell them not to. Because they feel like, oh, my parents telling me this, I'm going to do the opposite, So forcing them one direction might actually cause them to maybe even loathe you and go in a different direction. Yeah, I have a lot of friends whose parents are like that, and that's what caused them in the first place to do something that they're not supposed to do.
Sometimes they might even feel like resentful and like blame like their upbringing. I guess they might blame like, oh, it's because my mom or dad didn't let me do this, and this is why I'm like this. So so personally, I wasn't really like that, but I always realized that if I motivated myself to do something, the result would be much easier for me to accept than if my parents forced something on me and then I saw the result and I wouldn't be as pleased with it.
Yeah, and if your kid is thinking about applying to BC or BT or anything, it kind of shows that they already do care about their academics in the future, and I think it's important to know that your kid's academic is really their own thing, and what you can do is just support them and maybe provide guidance of why they should do things or not. But I think academics is really up to their own child, and my parents kind of let my parents like kind of let go of like monitoring the academic part of my life, and I feel like that was really helpful for me because it allowed me to realize that like I had to put in the work myself to get where I wanted to be in the future, and it's just really important to kind of like let your kid like grow up for themselves and like think about why it's important to work hard.
10 more minutes. Was there anything else?
I can give some more tips on social media.
Just like if anyone has anything that's horribly urgent, yeah.
Can we talk? After this, can we talk about video games also? Because I see the obsession on the video games. So how do you kind of give parents advice to kind of not let their child being too obsessed with it?
I'll address that as well, I think. I think what a lot of us said is that it's important to foster in your child a sense of self-motivation. And that's really helped me, actually. I became more independent and self-motivated after getting to high school. And I used to be a League of Legends addict. Yes. But then in high school, I practically stopped. Like, just on my own, I think. I guess just things in general, just getting your child to know that their decisions, they can make decisions, but then they will have to live with their decisions, and that's what's helped me. I think some things I do is I leave a lot of group chats that are absolutely useless, and another thing that helped is the mute function on your apps, because otherwise I would get notifications every single second because of all these crazy group chats. I mute all my group chats. I meant to even mute individuals that have been kind of annoying to me. Also, and I have also limited my use of social media. I feel like many times I've been tempted to get like Instagram, Snapchat, Discord, but I've had Facebook since middle school, and that's what I've stayed with. And I communicate either through Facebook Messenger or SMS, and I've done these things because I feel I'm more self-motivated nowadays, and I care about getting the things that I want to get in terms of extracurriculars and academics.
I know I personally was also a League of Legends addict. As in, when I mean addict, I would be up till 3 to 4 a.m. Playing League of Legends. I don't know why, but it was fun. And I think one of the reasons why so many kids don't want to go away from that is just it definitely offers an escape for some students. And at the same time, like gaming community, especially if it's an online game, which chances are a lot more addicting because the kids will say, I can't just leave in the middle of a game. It's online. Chances are they also have built their own friend circles or communities. While granted they are strangers, they still are online friends. And I think while with something like social media, you can't just say, okay, from 4 to 5, you can go on your phone for social media, just because I think a common complaint against that would just be like, 4 to 5 o'clock, a lot of things aren't going on. Social media is kind of a bit more constantly being updated. I think with gaming, what worked for me, what my parents put in at least was, once I get all my work done for the day, or at least enough work so where I'm not crammed the next few days, I can have as much time I want on my playing video games. And by giving me that, it kind of motivated me to try and finish my work as fast as possible to try and give myself as more and more time to play video games. It's kind of served as like a kind of a carrot on a stick that kind of made me want to work towards it. Of course, I ended up deleting all my video games right before high school after realizing that there are kids who play video games in classes instead of doing in-class essays, which I heard of and I thought was absurd, but I actually know some of the kids who would do that. So that was kind of dangerous. I know BCA has a really large League of Legends community, and I didn't want to be sucked into that, because once you do get sucked in, it's kind of hard to pull out. But I think with video games, a hard ban is definitely never the best situation, but gradually lessening it and trying to pull back, and eventually the kid will grow up. And video games, I think, are a phase for a lot of students. Once workload starts to get on, once they start to have more in life friend circles, especially when they start to meet more people in high school, they'll be pulling away from video games on their own.
Yeah, I think most of your kids are under the age of 12 or something, right? So like,
Well, 14.
well, 14? Oh, dang, I'm 16, so I don't know. I'm like young for my grade, but like considering that they're still like pretty young, they're like not even freshmen yet. I think they should be allowed like some time to play video games. Like I never got into video games except for like Tetris, but like except for Tetris, but like I know people who did like play a lot of video games, but then like as they realize like, oh, it's like not as big of a deal, like they'll like wean off of it by themselves. But I think whenever like parents force you to do something, like in our teenage minds we're just like, oh, let's do the complete opposite of that. So like I don't know, like just giving them room to like explore by themselves is really important.
Also, I think middle school is like an extremely young age, and I feel like most people by that age are not mature yet. I can definitely remember like a lot of regrettable things that I did in middle school that I definitely wouldn't do now. So like I feel like with a little bit of encouragement and no laws, I guess, I feel like your child would definitely like grow up just naturally. Because
so I think
everyone matures.
Yeah, I think a lot of us had these problems in the past, and we've all moved past them. You know, especially by your sophomore year, I think. After 1 year BCA, I feel like you should like realize
it's like a shock once you enter high school.
Yeah, it's like you realize that what you did in middle school will not fly in high school, and you have to make big changes. But understanding that from the kid's own perspective instead of the parent doing that, I think is incredibly important for personal growth, because you're not going to be there to handle them through the process. After their high school, they're going to go to college, and if they've had someone there saying, don't do this, do this, don't do this, do this, once you kind of throw them into a bit of a more real-world situation, or in college where they have to figure out things on their own, you're now going to be stuck with a kid who has no idea what to do unless a path's already made out for them. And that's not the type of kid you want your child to end up being.
I think it's like better to make mistakes in like middle school and high school than make them in college when they're like by themselves and like they can't just call you every single day and be like, what do I do in this situation or something.
Also,
like
maybe promote different hobbies. I know that worked for a lot of my kids. A lot of my friends. Sorry, a lot of my friends. You know, some of my friends were really addicted to video games, and then they started finding that they had a lot more fun playing basketball. You know, they've always been interested in basketball, but their parents never really, you know, focus on your academics first. You know, sports are secondary. Chances are you're not going to be professional. Why waste your time? But, you know, when they went to high school and they started playing like basketball just outside our school court or in our school's own gym, they started to realize that, you know, while they definitely don't see themselves going that as their future, it was a fun way for them to kind of, you know, just have fun. And I think when it got to the point where instead of wanting to rush home to go into the computer, they want to stay after school to play basketball. And I think, you know, hobbies like that, or, you know, if a kid has a slight interest in singing or art, you know, help support that and push that further, because chances are that's going to take the place of a video game, which parents are going to be a lot happier about.
And I think it's important to remember that we are not model students either. We're very confused. I'm very confused. I'm sure that a lot of you are also very confused with, you know, Chinese dramas or something. But, I know that I think it's very hard for me to prioritize things. It's still, like, I think I placed a lot of importance on my academics, and I think that was a mistake. And I think that it's definitely very, it's not clear to me what the path is going to be moving forward, but I think it's important to remember that it's a learning process, not only as you go into high school, but throughout your entire life, as you guys know, I'm sure. Yeah, so it's just, things will happen, and, you know, it's not bad if they happen.
I guess the other thing is that, like, just a couple of hours of video games a week is nothing to freak out about, I think.
As long as it doesn't start cutting into their own academic life or their goals, I think it should be fine.
Like a couple hours on a Sunday, I wouldn't be worried about that.
Amazing.
Amazing. What is the class size for all the three schools you're talking
about? BCA is 300.
No, I mean the per individual.
per class.
Oh, well, it depends a lot, because when you're like a freshman, like your classes will be like 20, 30 kids, but like we take AP Latin, AP Physics, those are 10 kids each, because no one takes those classes. So like the higher level you go and like the more difficult or like niche, I guess, your classes are, you'll have a lot less kids.
Yeah. But I think generally it's an average between 20 to 30 kids per class. It's like a very,
Ours is smaller. So it's
Ours is
smaller.
like around 15, like out on, on average 15 to 20.
Oh, for you guys maybe. For us, it's
maybe not for seniors.
Yeah, per class, yeah.
Oh yeah, it definitely varies. Like I know for BCA for senior year, like freshman through junior year, a lot of your schedule is kind of already built in. So like those are just distributed evenly for the kids. But I think like the seniors are saying, when the senior year where you can basically hand select every single class you want. In those classes, you'll get some with a lot more. Like AP Psych in our school is like I think like 20 to 30 kids or so. But then like AP Physics, I can't imagine is anywhere near that number.
I think, well, our data structures class is maybe 10 people in it. Our math class has 15, 16. But some of the more core classes will have more people. But of course, they'll split into sections.
Like IB History is like 20, 30 kids. That's just because so many kids take it.
I don't know.
20 to 30
is like overestimated.
No, my class is 25 right now.
Really?
Maybe.
I think my experience for over my 4 years is that an average class is 15 to 20 kids.
Yeah.
Maybe my class is just big. Maybe my class is just big.
And for the major, like science or computer science, can you like overlap major or just only can choose one academy? One.
You can choose one, but they do have
They have a second.
They have like you can choose like electives as well.
They can't choose second choice.
Like you have like so like even though I'm in engineering, I can take electives like a few med electives, or I can take art classes. But generally, the courses I'm assigned to that I have to take in order to graduate, those are purely like engineering, and I can't change that.
You applied to a certain school and you can lose a second choice. You're pretty much never getting your second choice. If you put the school, you should.
They don't do that anymore.
I don't
They don't have second choice anymore.
They don't have second choice
We
at all.
talked to the freshmen. They don't have any.
Oh, so you should investigate what program fits you best. I suggest the Science Academy if you're interested in the science at all. Or if you have more flexible interests.
I think the tours really help.
Yeah, do the tour.
Yeah,
Open house.
Because like the students present like the classes, and like we actually like tell you like what classes are like the hardest ones.
And based on that, I would choose what to apply to. You were accepted into a specific academy, and unfortunately, you can't change what academy you're in.
I think it's important to realize that also the Science Academy is not as general as it is before. I think it's a little bit more towards chemical engineering now. Yeah, it's still pretty general.
You can definitely learn the nuances as well as where the academies are kind of shifting towards through like talks with either current students or like open house. I think open house was probably the best way for me to learn what engineering really was, what science really was, what med really was, for me to pick out which one I thought fit me the best.
All right. Is there any other? Is there anyone?
What's your typical working hours for a typical day?
Changes. It's very different.
Well, I think in the beginning of the year it was like until like 1 o'clock or something like that. But now I go to sleep around like 11 or 12.
Yeah.
What about the bus?
Oh,
Pausing sucks.
it's really. So I have
At
to
least
wake
for our
up.
school, I don't know about them.
I wake up at like 6:40 or something, and then I have to be on the bus by 7 o'clock, and then I get to school at like 7:40. But then it's like when I come home, it's like our school day ends at 3 o'clock, but I get home at 4 o'clock because of busing, and then I walk another 15 minutes.
BCA has an extended school day. We don't end until 4:10. Buses don't leave our school until 4:30. I live in Fort Lee, which is only 15 minutes away, but I'm the last stop, so I won't get home on average till 5:15. So like understanding that like the hour, like my Fort Lee High, my local town school, they end at 2:30. So those kids get home, considering they're all in Fort Lee, around 3 o'clock. That's 2 hours that they can spend doing outside things like sports and such.
Driving.
Can you guys do the homework in the bus?
Oh, it's like
Yeah,
it's not
if
possible.
anything, you could like type, but like if you don't have a hotspot, then that's really hard to do.
I tried doing my homework on the bus once, and my handwriting is so bad. Like I couldn't even read it.
Like also if you do sports or anything, you'll probably get home like even later. Like
Yeah.
there were
like
days where
6
I
or
wouldn't
7.
get home until like 8 or 9.
Game days, you'll get home like super late.
It's definitely a lot of commitment in terms of actually going to BCA. I get up at 6:15 to catch my 6:43 bus. So I would definitely spend, and on average, if I take the bus home, which I do most days, I get home at 5:15. So I leave home at 6:45. I get home at 5:15. That's definitely a big commitment.
Yeah, during the winters, we have a joke that the BCA kids never get sun.
Yeah.
Like I wake up. Oh,
We don't have windows. Don't talk.
Yeah, for during the winter, like during the winter, because of like the way that the timing works and how long the day is, I wake up and it's dark outside. I get home and it's dark. Like I like in the heart of like December. And if, other than through windows, which BT doesn't even have,
we don't have windows.
I get this.
Our school's a warehouse that turned into a school.
Our school's like most of our classrooms have windows.
We have 0 windows.
Yeah.
Like
There's like a little sliver on the side room.
No. That's only in one class. That's a business class.
Okay.
But I think I think it's important to understand that like when you do go to a school that has an extended school day, if the kid in middle school has a lot of outside of school activities that run during weekdays, they're gonna have to either make some cuts or find some other way to time manage that. Just because like the only free time I have to do outside school activities, I think that aren't like school sponsored like sports or so, I only have the weekends.
And I think
you
it's
guys just take a nap on the bus.
yeah. So I think it's important to like. I personally, I think for mental health, it's very. I need to find some sort of off time in order to not be thinking about something. And I think that doing work on buses or cars for me is. I have decided in the past year or two that is just not something I want to do, and like it's valuable for me to reserve time for myself to not be thinking about something.
It's hard to be productive on a bus, and what I do is listen to music, listen to podcasts, and take naps. And that's all I do on my bus.
I'm just happy you guys first through the high school year, go to college.
Oh yeah.
We're just after the bus.
We still have another year.
Yeah. I mean, I drive, so it's a lot easier. It's a lot
16,
faster.
so I can't drive.
I drive most days.
Well, if there are no other questions, then I think we're going to wrap up around here. So thank you all for coming. If there is any other, like, if you want to see anything that happened in this panel, again, there will be an archive on YouTube, I think, at some point. So, yeah.
And everybody, actually, if you guys going to apply BCA or BT, there have some process, but this is only for this year. It's like 2018, not the 2019, not the 2020. So like, for there will be the new update. This is actually it's already past information. Yeah. So if you have any questions, you can. Yeah.
Thank you.